Yeah, talking freedom and liberation. Worldwide, not just only for the nation. A radical guide, it's time to make changes. Bringing interviews and radical education. Yeah, a better future, what we really need.
Welcome to A Radical Podcast. This is Jason Bayless, your host for this episode. A Radical Guide is a unique media project that uncovers stories, places, and people of resistance. We believe in the power of lost causes and are committed to building a community of individuals who share the goal of creating a better world for all. In today's episode, we have a wealth of topics to explore in our quest to understand the many forms of resistance taking place worldwide. In our Radical and Anarchist news segment, we'll be discussing a recent protest that occurred in Amsterdam on World Refugee Day, a demonstration against a Dutch airline company's involvement in the deportation of refugees to conflict areas. In our Resistance Around the World segment, we'll examine the role of labor movements in the current socio-economic landscape. We highlight their continuous relevance in protecting workers' rights and advocating for better wages, safer working conditions, and more equitable labor laws. For our About a Radical Guide segment, we'll be focusing on the Workers' Associations category on A Radical Guide. We feature over 100 worker associations worldwide, and today we're spotlighting the invaluable work of Resistência Popular Sindical Minas Gerais in Brazil.
Let's go!
Now on to our segment, Radical and Anarchist News. Today we bring you a report from World Refugee Day, which took place on June 20th. This past World Refugee Day, a protest occurred in Amsterdam targeting Corendon, a Dutch airline company. Protesters criticized Corendon's involvement in the deportation of refugees and migrants to conflict areas. They plastered posters around the city saying, "Corendon, Europe's proud partner in deporting refugees to conflict areas," and even staged a picket line at a Corendon College hotel. Corendon is known for its regular scheduled flights and specially hired charter flights, which are increasingly used for deportations. Reports suggest that Corendon plays a significant role in these deportations, sending individuals from various German airfields to countries such as Tunisia, Ghana, Egypt, Armenia, and Albania about 1 to 3 times a month. The UK has also reportedly contracted the company to deport individuals to Albania, Romania, and Israel to send people to South Sudan. The protest is part of a broader campaign called Stop the War on Migrants, which is spearheaded by individuals who oppose the European Union's border policies, which they argue perpetuate colonialism and racism. They accuse Corendon of contributing to these injustices by profiting from the deportations. The campaign forms part of the wider Abolish Frontex movement, which is focused on ending all deportations. The protesters' message was clear. It's time for Corendon and other companies like it to rethink their involvement in these practices. For those interested in learning more about this protest or seeking ways to get involved, we recommend visiting the Stop the War on Migrants campaign website. The link is in the description of this episode. Stop the War on Migrants is a campaign that challenges the current EU border and migration policies. It shines a light on how the EU militarizes border security, not just at its own external borders, but also in third countries. The campaign takes a critical stance on arms and security companies such as Airbus and Thales, which lobby for and profit from these stringent border control measures. The campaign's vision extends beyond just border security, detention, and deportations. They advocate for safe routes, appropriate shelter, and crucially, addressing the underlying issues that force people to flee their homes in the first place. If these issues resonate with you, we encourage you to check out their website and find out how you can contribute to their cause.
A radical guide, that's what this is. Highlighting the diverse world of resistance.
In this episode's Resistance Around the World segment, we focus on a transformative force that has significantly shaped the contours of human history, labor movements. Emerging from the collective struggles of working people, these movements have been instrumental in advocating for workers' rights and fundamentally reshaping societal structures. Labor movements represent the collective efforts of workers asserting their rights in the face of oppressive labor practices. They have challenged and continue challenging the exploitation of workers, pushing for just wages, reasonable hours, safe working conditions, and the right to organize and collectively bargain. From the era of the Industrial Revolution onward, as capitalism established its global stronghold, the working class often found themselves subjected to deteriorating conditions. As a response, workers started to unite, forming labor unions and movements that demanded better conditions and fair treatment. These movements, characterized by their incredible strength, resilience, and solidarity, have faced powerful industrial and state adversaries to secure fundamental rights and protections for workers. They have successfully transformed the labor landscape and have profoundly impacted broader social, political, and economic spheres. In exploring the rich and diverse history of labor movements worldwide, we will highlight their triumphs, struggles, and the ongoing fight for workers' rights. We will also explore the intersections between labor movements and anarchist principles, revealing the deeply intertwined relationship between the aspirations of workers and the vision of a society free from oppressive hierarchies and exploitative structures. So join us in this journey as we recognize the power and potential of labor movements in shaping a more equitable and just world. To truly understand the significance of labor movements, we must look back at their history, a powerful narrative of collective action and transformation. The Industrial Revolution marked a significant turning point in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. Factory work became widespread during this period, and labor conditions were often abhorrent, with excessively long working hours, child labor, and precarious health and safety conditions. The first labor movements began to take form in response to these conditions. In the United States, early manifestations of labor resistance included events like the Lowell Mill Girls' Strike in the 1830s and the Great Railroad Strike of 1877. Europe also saw a surge of labor organizing in the 19th century, from the Chartists in England to the development of labor parties and unions across the continent. As the 20th century dawned, labor movements began to gain significant traction. We saw landmark achievements like establishing the 8-hour workday, outlawing child labor, and the legal recognition of trade unions. The wave of unionism continued to spread across continents, marking notable movements like the labor movements in Latin America and the post-colonial struggles in Africa and Asia. In the recent past, labor movements have adapted to changing economic structures and labor landscapes. The rise of the gig economy and casual labor, the ongoing impacts of globalization, and the increasing automation of work have all posed new challenges and avenues for worker organizing. Throughout this journey, we will explore these movements, highlighting their shared aspirations, unique contexts, and continued relevance in the fight for workers' rights. While each movement is rooted in its specific cultural, political, and economic context, they tell a story of resistance, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of dignity and justice for all workers. Labor movements have been instrumental in advancing workers' rights and shaping the labor laws we often take for granted today. They have been the force behind significant shifts in policy and societal norms, pushing for more equitable and humane labor practices. The advancements championed by labor movements are many. They've been pivotal in establishing the 8-hour workday, a cornerstone of contemporary employment norms, and securing the right to collectively bargain, essential in leveling the playing field between employees and employers. Child labor laws, another critical achievement of labor movements, ended a distressing period of history where children were exploited in factories and mines. Today, the principle that children should not work, but instead have the right to education, is widely accepted thanks to the tireless efforts of labor movements. Equal pay and anti-discrimination laws have also been influenced significantly by labor movements. From advocating for gender pay equity to fighting against racial and age discrimination in the workplace, labor movements have persistently pushed for more inclusive work environments. In addition, labor movements have consistently fought for safer working conditions, reducing workplace fatalities and injuries over time. They have also fought for benefits such as paid leave, health insurance, and pensions, contributing greatly to the well-being and security of workers. Today, the role of labor movements is as critical as ever. They continue to fight against precarious work, wage theft, and exploitation in the gig economy. They are also at the forefront of advocating for a just transition in industries affected by climate change and automation. Labor movements have shaped our workplaces and significantly influenced our societal understanding of fairness, justice, and workers' dignity. They remind us that these victories were hard-won through collective action and solidarity, principles that remain crucial as we navigate the labor challenges of the 21st century. As we delve into the tapestry of global labor movements, it becomes evident how varied and rich their history and impact are. While there is a common thread of fighting for workers' rights and dignity, each movement carries its unique context and struggles shaped by the socio-economic and political landscapes in which they emerged. The American labor movement is a significant chapter in the history of labor rights, rooted in the profound economic changes that began with the Industrial Revolution in the late 18th century. It has been a central force for change, marked by various periods of intense struggle, and has had profound implications for American society and global labor relations. The rise of industrial capitalism in the United States during the 19th century saw labor exploitation in the pursuit of profit, leading to dismal working conditions, long hours, and low wages. This triggered the formation of early labor organizations, such as the National Labor Union in 1866, the Knights of Labor in the 1870s, and the Federation of Organized Trades and Labor Unions, which later became the American Federation of Labor, AFL, in 1886. These organizations aimed to improve workers' lives by advocating for better wages, working conditions, and hours. One pivotal event that stands out in the American labor movement is the Haymarket Affair of 1886. Originating from a strike advocating for an 8-hour workday, it culminated in a violent confrontation, leaving several police officers and civilians dead. Despite the violence, this event marked an important milestone in labor rights activism, significantly establishing the 8-hour workday norm. In the early 20th century, the Industrial Workers of the World, IWW, also known as the Wobblies, emerged as a radical labor union aiming to organize all workers into a single large industrial union. The IWW played a crucial role in significant labor struggles, including the Lawrence Textile Strike in 1912 and the Colorado Coalfield War in 1913-14, pushing for revolutionary changes in the American labor system. The Great Depression of the 1930s further fueled the labor movement. The Congress of Industrial Organizations, CIO, established in the mid-1930s, organized large numbers of unskilled workers within major industries. During this period, key labor legislation, including the National Labor Relations Act, also known as the Wagner Act, bolstered union power and significantly increased union membership. The American labor movement's influence has waned and waxed over time, facing numerous challenges from changing economic conditions, shifts in public policy, and societal attitudes towards unions. However, it remains a vital force, continuing to shape the landscape of workers' rights and working conditions in the United States. In our exploration of the American labor movement, we see the immense power of organized labor in challenging capitalist exploitation, achieving critical labor law reforms, and fundamentally reshaping working conditions for millions of workers. The movement is a stark reminder of the power of solidarity and collective action in demanding and securing workers' rights. Labor movements in Europe have been central to shaping the continent's modern socio-economic landscape. These movements have spanned nations and centuries, manifesting unique characteristics influenced by distinct historical, political, and economic contexts. The Industrial Revolution in Europe, similar to the United States, resulted in rapid urbanization and the expansion of factory work, giving rise to a new working class. This class endured harsh working conditions, low wages, and minimal legal protections. Labor unions began forming in the 19th century to advocate for workers' rights and challenge the exploitation inherent in the capitalist system. In the United Kingdom, labor organizations like the Trade Union Congress, TUC, established in 1868, fought for better working conditions and wages, leading to significant worker gains. Notable early successes included the 1888 Match Girls strike and the 1889 London Dock strike, demonstrating the power of collective action. France's labor history has been marked by a robust tradition of syndicalism and worker solidarity, as seen in events like the 1936 Popular Front strikes and the massive general strike in May 1968. French unions, such as the General Confederation of Labor, CGT, and the French Democratic Confederation of Labor, CFDT, played pivotal roles in these movements. Germany's labor movement, represented by organizations like the Free Association of German Trade Unions and later the German Trade Union Confederation, DGB, saw successes and setbacks across different political regimes, contributing to the country's robust social market economy. Under unions like the Italian General Confederation of Labor, CGIL, Italy's labor movements were a potent force often intertwined with the country's political struggles. The hot autumn of 1969, which brought significant gains for workers, is a notable instance. The Confederación Nacional del Trabajo, CNT, an anarcho-syndicalist labor union, played a significant role in Spain. Founded in 1910, it was a key player in the Spanish Civil War and was known for its revolutionary fervor and commitment to workers' self-management. In Scandinavia, the labor movement played a central role in shaping the region's renowned welfare state model. Unions like the Swedish Trade Union Confederation, LO, and the Danish Confederation of Trade Unions, LO Denmark, were instrumental in this process. European labor movements have fought not only for better working conditions, wage increases, and legal protections, but also for broader socio-economic rights and equality. Their influence has been felt within their national boundaries and globally, contributing to the international labor rights discourse. The struggles and successes of European labor movements underscore the power and importance of collective worker action in pushing back against exploitation, improving workers' rights, and shaping more equitable societies. They serve as crucial lessons and inspirations for labor movements worldwide. With its diverse cultures, histories, and economies, Asia also saw labor movements rise to prominence as responses to workers' rights and conditions. Various forces such as colonialism, rapid industrialization, and the advent of globalization have driven these movements. In Japan, labor movements developed after rapid industrialization during the Meiji Restoration. Workers' organizations like the Yoikai Friendly Society, founded in 1912, advocated for the rights of the increasingly exploited working class. The post-World War II period saw the emergence of the General Council of Trade Unions of Japan, or SOHYO, which led to massive strikes and protests in the 1950s and 60s, shaping the course of workers' rights in Japan. In India, labor movements were intertwined with the anti-colonial struggle. Early labor unions, such as the All India Trade Union Congress, AITUC, established in 1920, worked to improve conditions for workers against the backdrop of British colonial rule. Post-independence labor movements continued to fight for workers' rights, with unions like the Center of Indian Trade Unions, CITU, playing a critical role. In China, labor movements have historically been state-controlled. Nevertheless, the Chinese working class has found ways to assert its rights, such as the worker-led protests during the 1989 Tiananmen Square incident. More recently, China has witnessed a rise in labor unrest due to issues like unpaid wages, demonstrating workers' ongoing struggle for their rights within the constraints of the state. South Korea's labor movements have been notable for their militant resistance against oppressive labor conditions, particularly during the rapid industrialization under military rule. Organizations like the Federation of Korean Trade Unions, FKTU, and the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, KCTU, have been at the forefront of this struggle. In Southeast Asia, labor movements have navigated diverse political landscapes. The Philippines, for example, has seen vibrant labor activism with organizations like the Kilusang Mayo Uno, May 1st movement. Meanwhile, countries like Vietnam and Cambodia continue to grapple with labor issues in the context of a growing garment industry. Asia's labor movements, rich in their histories and struggles, highlight the determination of the working class to challenge exploitation and advance their rights. Their stories are a testament to the power of collective action in the face of systemic challenges and a beacon for workers' rights advocates worldwide. The history of labor movements in Latin America is vast and dynamic, encompassing various countries, contexts, and struggles. Labor movements in the region have been critical to advancing workers' rights and challenging political and economic structures. In Argentina, labor movements have been central to the country's social and political landscape. The General Confederation of Labor, or CGT, established in the 1930s, has played a critical role in organizing workers and shaping labor policy. Its involvement in the Peronist movement and the subsequent labor reforms of the mid-20th century have significantly influenced the trajectory of workers' rights in Argentina. Chile's labor movements, too, have left an indelible mark on the country's history. From the nitrate workers' protests in the early 20th century to the copper miners' strikes that challenged the Pinochet dictatorship, Chilean workers have consistently fought for their rights and dignity. The Central Unitaria de Trabajadores, founded in 1953, continues to be a key player in this ongoing struggle. In Brazil, labor movements emerged alongside industrialization, with organizations like the Workers' Party, PT, and the Unified Workers' Central, CUT, taking center stage in the fight for workers' rights. The strikes led by metal workers in the late 1970s and early 80s, famously supported by future President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, signaled a significant shift in Brazil's labor history. Mexico's labor movements have been instrumental in challenging oppressive labor conditions, particularly in industries such as mining and textiles. Organizations like the Confederation of Mexican Workers, CTM, and the Zapatistas have played significant roles in this struggle from the post-revolutionary period to today. Labor movements in Latin America, rooted in diverse contexts and histories, have navigated political upheaval, economic instability, and state repression. Their resilience and tenacity have been instrumental in securing better working conditions, advancing labor laws, and challenging exploitation. They stand as powerful examples of the strength and determination of workers in the face of adversity. Having explored the history and impact of labor movements across different continents, it becomes clear that these movements are not isolated struggles. Instead, they are part of a broader global movement against labor exploitation and for workers' rights and dignity. This global solidarity and shared struggle resemble the principles of another movement that spans borders, anarchism. Next, let's explore the deep-seated connection between labor movements and anarchist principles and how they've influenced and reinforced each other. The relationship between labor movements and anarchist principles is profound and deeply interconnected. Anarchism, as a philosophy and social movement, fundamentally advocates for abolishing hierarchical and coercive structures and promoting autonomy, mutual aid, and voluntary cooperation. These principles often resonate strongly within labor movements that fundamentally resist exploitation and demand fairness, dignity, and autonomy for workers. Anarchism's influence is distinctly visible in labor movements like the Industrial Workers of the World, IWW, in the U.S., colloquially known as the Wobblies. The Wobblies championed a philosophy of revolutionary industrial unionism, deeply inspired by the principles of direct action, solidarity, and the abolition of wage slavery. They upheld the concept of one big union of all workers, irrespective of their trade or skill, as a counter to the hierarchical organization of capitalist industry. The IWW's contributions to the American labor movement reflect a uniquely anarchist approach to labor organizing. In Europe, the Confederación Nacional del Trabajo, CNT, in Spain, epitomizes the confluence of anarchist and labor struggles. The CNT played a critical role in the Spanish Civil War and the broader fight against fascism, embodying a commitment to labor rights and a broader social revolution. The intersection of anarchism and labor movements signifies a foundational resistance to oppressive systems of power, whether they are manifestations of state control or capitalist exploitation. Instead, they advocate for a society based on mutual aid, voluntary association, and worker self-management, a system where workers themselves govern their labor and the conditions of their work. Viewed through this lens, we understand labor movements not simply as mechanisms for securing better wages or working conditions, but as vital arenas for challenging power structures, fostering solidarity, and advancing a more equitable and free society. Labor movements embody the concept that the emancipation of the working class must be undertaken by the workers themselves, a tenet that closely aligns with core anarchist principles. Today, labor movements across the globe face a myriad of challenges and opportunities. On the one hand, globalization and technological advancements have opened new avenues for organization and resistance. Conversely, neoliberal policies and economic shifts have eroded labor protections, enabling rampant exploitation. Neoliberalism, for example, advocates for a free market capitalist system with minimal government intervention. While generating economic benefits for some, This approach has frequently resulted in significant costs to workers' rights and protections. Key neoliberal policies have often involved deregulating labor markets, leading to less job security, increased use of zero-hours contracts, a type of contract where the employer is not obliged to provide minimum working hours, and greater susceptibility to exploitative labor practices. An example of this can be seen in the United Kingdom, where the proliferation of zero-hours contracts has been linked to neoliberal policies. In addition to deregulation, another significant aspect of neoliberalism is the push for privatizing state-owned enterprises, which often results in substantial job losses and diminished labor protections. When state industries are sold off to private owners, those owners often prioritize cost-cutting measures to maximize profits. In many instances, this translates into layoffs, wage reductions, elimination of benefits, and harsher working conditions, all at the expense of the workers. This was dramatically evident in Russia after the fall of the Soviet Union, when the transition from a centrally planned economy to a market economy entailed mass privatization. Many state-owned enterprises were sold off to private owners in a rapid, often chaotic process. As a result, many workers found themselves at the mercy of the market with little governmental protection. Substantial job losses ensued, and wage arrears, where workers were not paid their wages for months, became a widespread issue. Furthermore, the lack of a strong tradition of independent labor unions in post-Soviet Russia left many workers without an effective means of collective bargaining, exacerbating their vulnerability. Privatization, in its neoliberal form, often prioritizes profit margins over the welfare of workers, leading to adverse effects on labor rights and working conditions. Therefore, labor movements have often found themselves fighting against the implications of privatization, advocating for workers' rights, and campaigning for adequate labor protections in these contexts. The neoliberal policy has also promoted free trade without adequate worker rights protections. This was starkly seen in implementing the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. In the United States, NAFTA displaced many workers in certain industries as operations were moved to Mexico, where labor was cheaper. But the fallout extended beyond the U.S. borders. Mexican farmers, particularly those growing corn and other staple crops, could not compete with heavily subsidized American agribusinesses. The result was a devastating blow to Mexican agriculture, with millions of farmers displaced from their lands. The repercussions of this agricultural crisis are still felt today, contributing to rural poverty and food insecurity in Mexico and driving immigration to the U.S. Thus, labor movements are struggling not only against the displacement caused by these policies within their borders, but also against the broader systemic injustices wrought by free trade agreements like NAFTA. Moreover, austerity measures, another aspect of neoliberal policy, have led to cuts in public sector jobs and wages, further undermining labor rights. A striking example could be seen in Greece, where austerity measures following the financial crisis resulted in substantial cuts in public sector wages, jobs, and pensions. Despite these challenges, labor movements continue to assert the rights and interests of workers in the face of systemic exploitation. Their relentless struggle is not only against private corporations or state control, but also for establishing an equitable system where the workers themselves control labor and its fruits. From an anarchist perspective, it is crucial to underline that our discussions on state-owned versus privately owned enterprises serve as critiques of systems that neglect the labor force's interests for profit. We are not advocating for state control, but illustrating the importance of workers' control over their own labor. In this context, labor movements focus on illuminating pathways for a future where people, not states or corporations, are the masters of their lives and the determinants of their working conditions. Labor movements stand as a testament to the collective power of workers and their potential to resist, rally, and shape a more equitable world. Through solidarity and direct action, they continue to challenge power structures and fight for the rights and dignity of workers worldwide. The ongoing relevance of labor movements cannot be overstated. In a world that continues to grapple with growing income inequality, job insecurity, and exploitative labor practices, the role of labor movements in protecting workers' rights and interests is more critical than ever. These movements serve as a bulwark against the excesses of capitalism and neoliberal policies, advocating for better wages, safer working conditions, and more equitable labor laws. They represent the collective power of workers to push back against systemic exploitation and fight for their rights. The labor movements of today are continuing the fight against traditional forms of labor exploitation and tackling newer challenges. These include the rise of the gig economy, characterized by temporary, flexible jobs that workers perform on a freelance basis, and the increasing automation of jobs, which threatens to displace workers on a massive scale. In this changing landscape, labor movements are working to ensure that workers' rights are not compromised, receive fair compensation, and have a voice in the face of technological and economic shifts. Looking ahead, labor movements are not just planning, but already taking steps to protect workers' rights amidst swift socio-economic changes. Recognizing the need for evolution and adaptation, they are redefining traditional modes of labor organizing to reflect the modern world of work. More attention is being given to the plight of gig workers and remote workers, as well as those in informal sectors who often fall through the cracks of labor protections. Not only are labor movements working to combat new forms of labor exploitation, but they're also exploring and advocating for economic models prioritizing people over profit. In fact, some labor movements are pioneering initiatives to establish worker-owned cooperatives, providing workers with a share in the profits and decision-making processes of the enterprises they work for. An example of this can be seen in the efforts of Cooperation Jackson in Mississippi, USA. This organization is dedicated to building a network of worker-owned cooperatives, thereby promoting economic democracy to solve economic inequality and underdevelopment. These movements also endorse other progressive economic measures, such as universal basic incomes, to provide a safety net in a world where job stability is increasingly precarious. It's clear that labor movements are not just reacting to change, they are anticipating and shaping it. Their proactive efforts in adapting to the evolving world of work and pushing for people-centered economic models are a testament to labor movements' enduring relevance and potency. By doing so, they protect workers' rights today and pave the way for a future where workers have greater control over their labor and its fruits.
Radical education, yeah, a better future what we really need, not rooted in capitalism or supremacy.
A Radical Guide is dedicated to exploring and celebrating the history, stories, places, and people of resistance. Our project stands as a testament to the power of lost causes, and we are committed to building a vibrant, informed community of individuals united by a shared goal to create a better world for all. With an extensive directory boasting over 1,000 radical locations listed worldwide and growing daily, A Radical Guide offers an invaluable resource for understanding resistance. Whether you're eager to add a location to our map or simply want to immerse yourself in the wealth of information we provide, we welcome all drawn to our shared cause. But our mission extends beyond a simple directory. A Radical Guide is a dynamic platform where we host panel discussions, interviews, podcast episodes, and other forms of media. These highlight a wide range of topics, from the philosophical underpinnings of anarchism to practical guidance on radical organizing. Among the many categories we feature, the Workers' Association section stands out. Currently listing over 100 global worker associations, this section shines a light on the tireless work being carried out by organizations striving to protect the rights and interests of workers. These associations span the globe, from Malmo Locala Samorganization, Advocacy Sindical Esterna in Sweden, and Unione Sindacale Italiana, Reggio Emilia in Italy, to Comic Book Workers United and the Industrial Workers of the World in the United States. Today, we would like to spotlight Resistência Popular Sindical Minas Gerais in Brazil. Resistência Popular Sindical operates as a self-managed collective of workers, a testament to their emphasis on autonomy and grassroots organizing. Their collective is active across various sectors, including transport and education, demonstrating the breadth of their impact. Beyond the workplace, Resistência Popular Sindical extends its reach to students and communities, indicating a holistic approach to organizing. Their work in these areas highlights the interconnectedness of labor struggles with broader socioeconomic issues and the importance of engaging with diverse communities to achieve meaningful change. We invite you to visit A Radical Guide to learn more about Resistência Popular Sindical Minas Gerais and their invaluable contributions to workers' rights and social change. Discover their work, learn from their experiences, and see how they, along with hundreds of other worker associations featured on A Radical Guide, are part of the global movement for a more equitable world. And while you're on A Radical Guide, remember that you can contribute in two significant ways. First, help us grow our collection of radical locations by submitting your favorite places. Simply click Add a Listing and fill in the details about the location and its significance. Second, consider supporting our work financially. We are dedicated to expanding and maintaining this resource for the global resistance community, and your support makes it possible. To contribute, just click on Support ARG. Thank you for being a part of this exciting and important project.
Let's go.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of A Radical Podcast. Today, we've journeyed through stories of resistance and explored the strength of global labor movements, the courageous protest against the deportation of refugees in Amsterdam, and highlighted the critical work of Resistência Popular Sindical Minas Gerais in Brazil. Each story underscores the importance of collective action and the power of standing up against injustice. They remind us that no matter where we are in the world, there are people who share our vision of a fairer, more equitable society and are actively working towards that goal. Remember, if you want to learn more about today's topics, you can visit A Radical Guide's website. Here you can find more information about worker associations worldwide, submit your own favorite radical locations, and explore the breadth of our offerings, from panel discussions and interviews to other videos covering a wide range of topics. We also encourage you to support our work by making a financial contribution. Your support allows us to continue sharing these vital stories of resistance and building a global community committed to social change. Again, this has been Jason Bayless, your host for this episode. Keep up the good fight, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode of A Radical Podcast. Until then, stay radical.
Yeah, talking freedom and liberation. Worldwide, not just only for the nation. A radical guide, it's time to make changes. Bringing interviews and radical education. Yeah, a better future, what we really need. Not rooted in capitalism or supremacy. Yeah, trust, you don't want to miss it. We bring the truth right to you, the past, present, and future. Let's go. A radical guide, that's what this is. Highlighting the diverse world of resistance. Let's go.